Okay, so our next guest on the podcast, and the reason that I've jumped on as an additional host is because this next guest and I go way back. She is none other than Urmi Kothari. She is hands down, in my opinion, one of the top coaches in the country. Um, Besides being a fitness coach, she's also the founder of Kinetic Living in KshaLa. She recently authored a book called Kinetic Living. She's also a multimodality fitness coach, which and her certifications I think include animal flow, kettlebell, functional training. What have I missed? I've missed a lot, I know, but have I got the and Pilates, a very important one. Finally, well, also not finally. This is where we sort of cross paths. She's one of four Nike certified instructors in India, and Urmi is an energy coach, and that's what I'd like to lead with. Urmi, can you tell us what it means to be an energy coach and the way you define it?
So, first of all, thank you. It's very special for me to have Tanvi and as well as you on this podcast and being here. Energy coach is basically means how we access our subtle energy, because as human beings we have our body, we have our emotions and thoughts, and that creates a certain level of vibration and frequency of being and how we lead our lives, and that directly affects our attitude as well. So that's being an energy coach. In my context in particular, because of having worked with the body and being in fitness for 25 years, coaching since 12 years, I realized that when clients were coming to me for fitness and fat loss or muscle building or just having a healthy way of living, there are a lot of my own as well as their challenges were not just stemming from a workout or not just could be addressed at a muscular level. We needed to go deeper, and that's how I would anyway coach them in mindset. But when I started looking at my own challenges, I realized I could also study and help students and other people overcome these outside of the gym challenges, and that was directly affecting their consistency, their discipline, their enjoyment in workout. So now I combine fitness with energy coaching to really make people powerful, physical, subtle levels, both. Yeah.
Yeah. I just have one question for our audience that is perhaps looking to pursue a career in fitness. You are definitely one of the more mature, experienced coaches here that have really established yourself in a particular space and you really own it. I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you do too, and it'll be good for us to address it here. If you're starting out your journey as a fitness instructor or an instructor, how do you find your sort of sweet spot? Like, is it, try a bunch of things, or should you know from the get go where you want to specialize? Like, what would be your advice?
Honestly, I definitely think the way even I became a fitness coach was through first being an athlete or loving fitness for the first 12 years before I became a coach. So, definitely, enjoyment and being interested in what you're doing is like key to this profession because it's a human profession, which means you need to really, at least in my opinion, genuinely care for empowering other people and not just doing it for the money. Yes, money is important, it's very important to help you sustain that career. But what will also help you sustain that career and find fulfillment is that you enjoy what you're doing. So that's one. Second is definitely, which I've seen is now becoming popular, is that coaches or fitness aspirants are doing so many things in one go that they're not going deep in anything. So I would say I that's the advice I give, and that's something I followed unconsciously. I think it worked very well for me. Is I went into one thing at least minimum for a year or two, and basketball was for 8 years. Gymming has been now for I don't know how many years, but even like something like kickboxing, I did it for almost 2 years before I moved on to something else. So give it that time, patience, gravitas that you need in order to know that craft, and then move on to something else. Also explore, and another thing is that you don't need to become an expert in every modality. You just need to maybe have few things which work for you and which you like teaching. um, and the rest can be complementary. Like today I go and learn mudgar or slacklining or gymnastics, but I don't know, I'm not going to start teaching that right now, and I don't maybe want to as well. And as a coach, you always want to stay inspired. So that's, I think, again an advice where seek for things that challenge you, inspire you, because that's what you will provide to your clients as well. And get your basics right. Like that's something that pisses me off as well. That when a trainer knows all these amazing exercises but they are not able to break it down for their clients. So it's one thing to be amazing at something, but it's another thing to teach it. So if you know how to know the muscles, know the anatomy, then you can break down the exercises and then teach it, which is the whole point of coaching. So I feel like these are very important non-negotiables. Everything else over and above that is an icing on the cake, and yeah, you find your flavor there.
Yeah. All right, Urmi. So I want to get to kinetic living. How did you come up with the term? And I asked you yesterday because it's such a unique term and it's one that sticks, it's one that sticks. And I think you get a sense of it the moment you read it as well. But I want to understand how you came up with it, and if you trademarked it, because it totally deserves it. Yeah.
So yes, it's trademarked. I think within the first 2 years of it, I had already applied for it, and it's trademarked. Second is, as the word suggests, kinetic, from coming from kinetic energy, which is dynamic movement. And I have seen how fitness has helped me achieve my potential as a human being, or has empowered me to go after other things. So I feel when you start tapping into your kinetic energy, you are having the capacity to maximize your human potential, which is again a potential energy that way. So at a mechanical level, that is what it is. And at the same time, I was described as a kinetic person by my advertising mentor when I was in advertising before in 2007, and that sort of stuck with me. So 5 years later, when I had finished my dancing stint and I had come back, and I was like, I want to start some name what I'm doing in fitness, but I don't want the word fit in it. And I was very clear, I didn't want my name in it. I was very clear with these two things. So I was like, I want something that is bigger than me, and also to be able to be part of something bigger as well. And that's when so the word kinetic came in. And then I was like, living, because for me that's a way of life. And that's how kinetic living came in. And even till today I tell, and that's the philosophy, is that I may teach you fitness, I may teach you how to eat, I may teach you how to manage your emotions and mindset, but you will find your version of a kinetic life. Like for Tanvi, it could be to be able to coach maybe say 5 6 sessions and also do a podcast. For Swetha, it could be to do her personal training and then be like a go get a businesswoman, and then go and do like play with her dogs as well. It could be so many, and like lift a bunch of weight, like, oh, I just did that. And so everyone has their own version of their kinetic life, and that's what it is. So it's a framework. It's not like you better only lift this and you better only eat this. It's not that.
I think that's the perfect segue into what to expect from your book, because it's also titled Kinetic Living. So, of course, all of us know you to approach fitness very holistically. And you have little workshops that's happening around, the country as well. I attended one yesterday. There was mindfulness, there was a spiritual aspect to it, emotional aspect to it, and, of course, physical aspect. And can you tell us what all we can expect in the book? And the workshop, I assume, is just a little capsule of, or like a taste of what to expect in text form, right?
Correct. Yeah. So first of all, what the book is about is it definitely a very practical guide. So it's not going to be just, oh, you do this and not show you how to do it. So there are QR codes in the book which talk about the videos, small videos that are given to start activating the body, start connecting with the body. So definitely you can expect a lot of guidance on workouts. The book also has a framework on how you can make your own workout plan. The book has a movement library The book has a guideline of realistic way of eating where you never have to diet again. The book has this, so the book is divided into three parts: physical quotient, awareness quotient, happiness quotient, which is the three pillars of the philosophy. And so the awareness is how you build physical awareness, emotional awareness, and mental awareness. So there are exercises literally which you can do. And then the last part, which is the happiness quotient, is just breaking and myth busting around how to approach HIIT as a mindset. How there are two laws I've also mentioned, which how you can use those two laws to keep fitness as a lifelong pursuit rather than it being a phasic thing. Absolutely right. So, and the initial, just the first 3 4 chapters talks about, one chapter is on my journey, how kinetic living came about, and what were my takeaways from my lessons. And the first part of the book also talks about how we can connect with the body beyond the fitness, beyond what it can just do for us at a human plane. And that's where the little bit of the, I would say, spirit aspect comes in more than the spiritual, because our spirit is our creative, most creative version. And we cannot manifest our creative ideas unless and until we are aligned with our physical body. So that's where I feel, as a someone as on the path of coaching, self coaching, and also learning and doing creative ideas like workshops, is to how can I marry my creative ideas, my creative spirit, with having the physical energy and the presence, and go through these difficulties of human life, of getting overwhelmed, getting overworked, or maybe not being able to do a workout, or maybe putting on 2 extra kilos because I went overboard with something, or losing and looking really ripped because I feel so amazing as well. So I think that's what the book is. It's a very holistic, and when I say holistic, it's not just that do meditation, do, it's like why you're doing what you're doing. It starts to question that, and I feel that's what is needed in this overdo do world. And where everything is pulling you in different directions from the outside, it's so important to ask, why am I doing this podcast, why am I writing this book? And I did question myself so many times while writing the book, why am I writing this book? Because it got so tough so many times where I'm like, I'm not able to show up, I'm not able to do this. So what I did was apply the same things that I told people to apply for fitness. I thought I'll apply it to writing. And say, for me, writing is a very new pursuit. So let me apply the same principles and see if it works. And it did work. So yeah, that's that. And with workshops, I would say, is yeah, a workshop is just a glimpse of, to make it experiential learning, rather than it just being me talking to them via a book.
We've spoken about the book, which is your today, the latest thing that you've done. But of course, there's been a journey. And I think I sort of jumped into that journey somewhere in 2015, 2016, with the Nike camp. And of course, I've observed and been fascinated by the journey since. But I'm keen to, and I'm sure the listeners are keen to also understand, how did it all begin? What was Urmi like as a child? I know this can go on for a long time, but as briefly as you can, as you can summarize this journey, because I think for a lot of people, they're interested in fitness. They perhaps later on in life have thought about it as a career. I think from that perspective, your story will be appealing as well, and insightful. But just, I think, people to get to know you better in your journey.
So definitely a tomboy to start with when I was in school. I think I was also lazy, I feel, at some point. Yeah, right.
Not at all you.
So I think before I took on basketball, I was in throwball for a year. Throwball is another sport. And was okay, like was not so attached to it, no, not so involved in it. And then a best friend introduced me. He's like, oh, let's go for basketball. I'm like, okay, let's go. And within 1 month I was like, dude, this is my drug. And I'm like, I don't care about losing weight or not, because I was a chubby kid, but not obese, but I was chubby. And like all girls, I wanted to like lose a little bit of chubby fat. And so I was like, okay, let me try basketball. But I was like, do hell with losing weight. I'm loving this sport and I'm gonna play this. And I think it started out that as that. And if I have to talk about as a mindset, sport gave me that de-stress time and that ability to focus on my studies as well. So I've always been that person where I'm like, this is my me time. And everyone else who's going to come here and talk to me, do not talk to me, because I'm not here to talk. I'm here to play, or I'm here to work out, whatever. So I think that has been a consistent thing where I'm doing my thing, bro. Like, don't disturb me or anything. And became a dancer after my MBA school, because I realized I was not cut out for a corporate job. And that's when I realized that I wanted fitness or movement to be a very prominent part of my life. And then when I became a dancer, I knew I was not going to go back to a full time desk job. That I was clear. And honestly, as a fitness coach, it happened so organically because some friends asked me to coach them because I was doing so much. And I said, okay.
Were you still doing just dance at that point?
Yes. So I
Wow, that's
just,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
I just moved back from Kerala after the dancing stint of 3 years, and I moved back to Bombay. And
Without much of a plan? You just
no,
moved back?
no
Okay.
plan, zero plan, 3,000 rupees in my account, and still dependent on parents. And at that time, I was 27.
Wow.
Yeah,
Really?
so between
27.
yeah, so 24 to 27 is when I was a dancer, and I was making enough money to sustain myself. But then after that, you don't have much savings. And then 27, I was like, okay, let's see what to do. And then literally within a week, I was like, some friends were asking, so I was like, okay, let's go and try this. And what I realized is I love teaching. And I'm
You're
like,
an incredible teacher, by the way.
thank you. And I was like, I love teaching, I love fitness, and I can make money out of this. So I said, let's try this. And then within a month, I was like, and it was my dad who pushed me, and he's like, Urmi, now you're going to go and teach people. You better get certified. And I was like, yes, you're right. And then I think it was such a golden advice at the right point in time. And then that year, when I decided to become a coach, I did like some 5 6 different certifications. And this is where I can tell people who are wanting to get into fitness is that yes, certifications are important, but practical exercise experience is so important. So what happened is I went full in with the theory. I already had the practical behind me, right? I was like, "Arey, I can do this." Like, and then there are these different trainers they're struggling with trampoline, and I'm like, "Yay, I can do this, right?" And so I think that's where I married the my physical strength, stamina, with the brain technical power which came in, and that gave me a lot of confidence to have my own voice,
Right.
because I knew what I was talking about. And I think that's what is important. Anyone who wants to become a fitness coach today is, uh, it took me some time, but one thing I was clear. And in fact, that's something that Dada in the Make the World Listen campaign, they took the quote, and I had just said this one thing. I said, you do you, know what you're good at, and just go after it and ignore other people's opinions of what they think. And I think that has gotten me where I am, because if I had not embraced what I needed to learn about emotions and mind, I wouldn't have been an energy coach today. So I think, yeah, I would say that's my journey of being like a hardcore person to be like, oh, I need to be soft also, otherwise life's gonna bash me from everywhere.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Actually, that is a perfect segue to what I want to ask. So I experienced a workshop yesterday in person, and of course, you as an energy coach, there's something that I noticed. Obviously, you have the technical know-how, you have the practical experience, all that's there, but you showcase a little bit of vulnerability as a coach. So when you told the women to do something that might have been, let's say, physically challenging, obviously everyone happens to have an inner talk with themselves when they're being physically pushed, right? And then you asked everyone to be conscious of what they're saying to themselves. And you gave an example saying that, even I tend to compare myself with other people. But, that's not necessarily healthy because I have my own path, I have my own strengths. But to be that self-awareness is important, right? And you basically gave your own example and your own vulnerability. Do you feel like that's something that has always been a part of your coaching style, or it's something that's come to you now that you're saying you went from this hard person to now, okay, there needs to be some softness as well? And has that been a conscious shift? You must also see how perceptive the women are then thereafter, right? So tell me a little bit about that, because I loved it. That stood out for me.
Okay. So one is, I never tried to be vulnerable, or I didn't even know something like vulnerability existed for me till I hit a burnout in 2019. And that's when I realized the reason I'd hit a burnout was because I was refusing to give into those aspects of myself that wanted to rest, that wanted to give back to myself. And now, especially post COVID and people talking so much about mental health, I have one more thing realized is, after really working on my mind and psychology, that how much actually it's important now to also learn to how to regulate your emotions. And that is something that I am really passionate about now, as in my coaching, is how do you marry all the three. So it was never an conscious attempt to bring in my example or be vulnerable, but the whole aim is to be real. And I've always been real. However, as hard as I was when I started out, or as tough I was, or as demanding I was as a coach, I still am. But I'm also now, I know when to pull back and when to like push, which earlier I didn't, was not as aware. But of course, I was doing my best then, and I'm doing my best now. The aim is always to be authentic and real, because that's what I feel that's also what connects people with me, whether I've coached celebrities is or non-celebrities, is that she treats me as a human being and not even as a man or a woman. I will never tell someone that, oh, if you're a girl, start with this push up, or oh, I think like just because they are a man, like assume that they know how to do a push up. And that for me, I think, has been a big strength as a coach, that I look at people as human, I mean, as a human body. And second is, like I said, to be real. And the last thing is how people perceive, or how people say is, I give my examples wherever there is relevance. And it depends from situation to situation. Maybe I know someone else's example and I'll use it. So yeah, real and authentic is, I feel, the inner compass. Yeah.
I have one last thing to say, then I'll let partner close up. But I spoke to you about this yesterday as well. I've not known you at a very personal level, of course. We've crossed paths because of work and things like that. And so I've known you from a little bit of a distance, so from the outside perspective, right? And I did mention to you that for the first few years that I knew you, there was a hustle about you, right? There was just this non-stop, like, I understand why why someone gave you the term kinetic, because you were just like, this is done, okay, next thing, okay, next thing. I felt that energy from you, right?
I was called also the machine.
Yeah. And I, over the years, have again witnessed the energy shift in you, and there's a stillness to you now, which, I really appreciate. And so I feel like if the people that will buy your book or attend your workshops and stuff should know that you truly have shifted your energy, and I sensed it even from a distance, right? And so if someone was to coach energy, I think you've lived it, and you absolutely are showcasing it in your day to day. And I think you, in that sense, have imbibed that change, and I think people should learn from you. And I myself witnessed it from a distance, right? And there's a stillness to you now, which I enjoyed even during lunch yesterday. But yeah, I definitely want to say that clearly you have made those changes in your life and those shifts in your own life, and you're not just dictating to people this is how you should do it. You actually imbibed it. So yeah, I just wanted to say that
Thank you.
I've witnessed the journey.
Thank
For
you.
sure.
Yeah. And to that, I just want to say one thing is that, if we like, because I process, so I do energy coaching mainly through 4 levels: muscles, your fascia, right? That's why animal flow. The third thing is your nervous system, and that we all have in common. We all are born with it. It's, in a way, the human circuitry, the motherboard of our computer. And what I have essentially done through my studies or through my realization and through my interests, again, I'm coming to interest because as a coach, that's what makes me good, is that I was interested in knowing the nervous system and how it affects my muscles and my stillness or my creativity or whatever. Is I started working on that. And we all have that potential. And all that's what I teach in my workshops, through breathing, through meditation, is through when we learn how to become still, we bring in a certain sense of potential energy. But then when it builds up, we are able to, it's like a slingshot. Exactly, right? And then how, see how you fly. Right? But right now what's happening, the bandwidth to manage stress is lesser because we are not even giving ourselves deep rest. When we give ourselves deep rest, we are able to push more that side as well. So your ability, your threshold to manage and handle pain in that sense or discomfort is much more when you give yourself that essential deep rest. But right now we are using a lot of other substances, or I can say ways to quote unquote bring rest, but it's not deep rest. So there is a term called NSDR, non sleep deep rest. And I've sort of trained myself into doing that, where you actually train your brain to relax deeply without having to go and take a like a 1 hour deep sleep nap. And it's like literally, if you do that, like yoga nidra is a good tool as well. And I have done it between my hectic energy coaching sessions, like 3 sessions in a day, each lasting for almost 2 hours. And then let's say doing a recording like this or doing my workout. All I do is I go, I lie down, I focus on my breathing, I train myself to relax deeply. 20 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And that sense of power and stamina is not coming from caffeine driven, fight or flight driven. It's coming from a state of thriving rather than surviving. And we all have that. So I just wanted to say that it's possible for every single person. And my jam is to break it down for people and get nerdy about it.
I think one of the coolest things about you is, you're so physical and tomboyish and all of that. But there's this deep nerd in there that wants to pop its head out. And I love it. I love it because, I am the tomboy and I don't have that aspect to me. But so, I mean, it's.
No, you're so technical as well, man. Come on. It takes one
Well,
to recognize one.
well,
I know
okay.
it. Yeah.
And perhaps that's where we sort of bonded so well because we recognize the nerd in each other. I think, I mean, we're almost out of time, but I think as a nice closing to this, we've heard about your incredible journey up until this point, and I'm very curious to know what next for Urmi Kinetic Living. Yeah.
So there are 3 goals which I have been working since last year as well. And I think the kind of vision I'm having for what I want to do, it is requiring me to have more patience. So one of them is having a like you can say kinetic living ecosystem which has some more certified trainers across the country, because I'm so passionate about, not just passionate, it's my purpose to help people work out in the right technique, especially lift weights or do functional training. And then it will have it already, I'm working on the video on demand side of the courses, so self-paced courses. And then having a range of self-help journals, cards, affirmation cards, flashcards, and also having a community via the retreats, as well as doing workshops like climb. So the idea is to build a kinetic living being world where every being actually um, is a kinetic living being, right? We all are living beings. And that's a realization I had last year, where that, oh my God, I named it kinetic living. And now the being has come after it, after I have embodied it. So that's my vision. And the second is for Kinetic Living, the book, to reach as many people as possible, because I truly believe in that book. And I would say the third thing is more personal, but to give back to community, not just via Kinetic Living, but also to my family, to also my friends, and to connect with more inspiring women like the two of you. And I think I've done something right to have both of you and be on this podcast. But also, there are so many other women in my life as well, who are not in my workspace, but who I would love to just be inspired by. So, yeah, connecting with more communities.
Well, we definitely wish you all the best, and I will keenly be watching from the sidelines and being inspired by everything you do. Yeah, thank you for your time. I know, like,
Thank you for your time. And
as much as you say stillness, I still feel like you're in 10 different places at one point. But you're absolutely right in that energy shift from being sort of like, just go 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 to this calmness about you, which even I have noticed. So yeah, keep going, Urmi, and we're all the sisters are cheering you on.
That's right.
And yeah,
And Urmi, you've promised that on one of your trips in the future, you're gonna have a longer stint so you can attend our session.
Yes, yes, both
Football.
basketball and football.
That's
both.
right.
Yes.